and I'm too tall, so let's see if we can do this. I'm Jill, and I'm an alcoholic. If you'll join me to open this meeting with the Serenity Prayer, please. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. I don't know if these go up any further. Okay. As I said, I'm Jill. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is 3/2/96 from Indianapolis, Indiana. My home group is the DIGS, which is the dignitaries. No dignitaries, no sympathy. Great group on Tuesday night. If you're ever in Indy, please join us. And I have a sponsor, and I sponsor women. And I don't know what I'd do without the women in my life today, because there's so many of these dry patches, and I'll tell you a little bit about the past year and a half to 2 years of my life. It's just fallen apart. That stuff happens. So what do you do if you've been sober for a while and you hit those places in life? Some of the things I removed, some of the things left. But, life happens. And the thing I can tell you is, if I don't stay in the middle, which was mentioned earlier, I don't know that I'd be in this lifeboat today. So with saying that, first of all, I want to thank Leslie for your friendship. And if you lived any closer, we'd probably be in trouble. I enjoy her, and thank you for hosting me. And thank you for everybody that put this conference together. When I first got the call and they said, Defiance, Ohio, I go, Defiance? I'm there. Absolutely. Like, how can I turn that down? I'm like, that kind of is my middle name. So anyway, and I want to thank my friend Susan for coming with me today. It was for this trip. 2-hour trip, took us about 4.5 hours. I'm like, we just don't make anything easy. So, great fun. And it's great to have people in your life like that today. We've walked together in sobriety for many years. And the thing is, today we know how, as many people have mentioned, you often hear that women say, I don't like hanging out with women when I first got sober. And I can say today that I have women in my life that I can be transparent with. I can stand in front of them and I can show them everything that's ugly that's going on inside of me and what's going on inside of here, and they still love me. And we walk together, and that's a beautiful thing, because I didn't know how to do that when I came in these rooms. So, a little bit about where I was in the beginning. First of all, I grew up in Indianapolis. My parents, I always try to say, because I blame my parents all the time for everything that happened to me. And once I got sober, I realized that my perception to everything is really screwed up. And so, it was their fault this happened, it was their fault that happened, it was his fault this happened. And when I got sober and we start to unlearn some of those old ideas and realize what really happened, my story looks a lot different. I had 2 wonderful parents that were married, that actually got along, and that were there for me. Probably too much. They gave to me when I was good, and they gave to me when I was bad to shut me up. And I had one brother. And the thing I know today is I was always jealous of him, because his life always seemed to be good. The thing I didn't realize is he showed up at work, he bought his books and he went to school. He actually studied for tests. He fell in love, he got married, and he stayed. Okay, I'm like the Seinfeld episode. It just didn't stick. I don't know what else to tell you. My life doesn't look like that, and I start and I never finish. And thank God I have a sponsor that's walked with me in these rooms, because I probably would have done the same thing here. I didn't know how to do that. I don't know how to be a finisher. I start something, and when the shine wears off, I'm gone. And I hate to say I have done that to people. I've done that to relationships. I've done it to jobs. Just about everything in my life. So growing up, no, it was not my parents' fault that I'm a drunk. It was not my parents' fault that I acted the way I did. They actually did everything they possibly could to love me. And what I know today and how I interact with my daughter is I also know that I don't enable people. So when my daughter started to drink like I was drinking, the first thing that you guys taught me is that we can be honest and we can be kind, And we don't have to enable that behavior. So I don't co-sign those things today. I don't co-sign them with the people I sponsor, and nor do I co-sign that behavior in my personal life. So to start off with, my parents weren't my problem, and my brother, who I never had a relationship with, because when you constantly feel apart from somebody, I was always judging him. I was always jealous of him. I didn't even want to go to his house because every time I went to their house, it was a bigger house. I was like, I'm not getting out of the car. And my dad's like, what is wrong with you? And so I was always jealous of him. I'm like, how does he always have such good luck? How does he always get ahead? And once again, I'm like, he applied himself. What a concept. Jill, you're always drunk and never show up. And so even my brother's graduation from college with honors, I did not attend because I was at a party at a bar. I chose to attend things that were to my benefit, as we've heard from many people today. And I do want to thank the two speakers that I've heard. Ken and Christina did a wonderful job and spoke to my heart. It's like, how do I learn to be an active part of society? How do I show up and learn how to be a mom? I walked in here at 35 years old, and I did not know how to be a mother. I did not know how to be a friend. I didn't know how to be a girlfriend. I didn't know how to be an employee. It's like I didn't know how to do anything. And my mom had remarried after my father died, and I remember my stepdad asking me, how does she not know how to do this stuff? And then I asked him to co-sign on my loan for my house, and he's like, how old are you? And he didn't understand, what my life had looked like before, but he couldn't comprehend somebody at my age not knowing how to show up and live life. And that's what you guys have shown me how to do. So I go from a child that is envious of everybody else having a normal life, and I just can't get there. As my father always said, you have a lot of potential, but your potential has never, ever got you a paycheck. And that's true. I was always going to be somebody. I was always going to do something, but I never did it. And where my drinking was very fun in the beginning, as many people said, and I had a great time with it, and it gave me everything that I thought I needed to walk through my fears and be a part of. What I found in the end is it stopped working for me, and I thank God it stopped working. I thought that was the worst day of my life. And today I'm thankful it stopped working. It threw me into the throes of depression and despair and remorse that we talk about. And it is at that moment where I had that clarity, where I reached out for help. I didn't need help. I always had ideas, and when I ran out of ideas, and I ran out of hope, and I ran out of people, I had that moment of clarity. And it was during that moment of clarity that I reached out. And thank God, as we talk about today, and we talked about gratitude, thank God that there was a hand of AA doing 12-step work. Because without that 12-step work, I probably wouldn't have had a first step. So saying that, what did my drinking look like? I'll give you a short snapshot, and I think that will be enough to make you a believer. 12, 13 cars, that many relationships, that many engagements. I didn't marry them all, nor did they want to marry me after they really got to know me. I never had a job other than long enough to pay the bills to get where I needed to go or get to the party. I mean, I never had ongoing employment. My father always took care of me, and I always say it was like Humpty Dumpty. He always put me back together again. He was always there for me, and so was my mother. But when you continue to enable a person like myself, it makes it hard to, it just elongates the time before we hit bottom. So, as I said, I've wrecked all these cars. I've been in all these accidents, and the one bad accident that I was in, I was actually the only time that I was sober, and I was hit by a drunk driver. And I was lifelined to the hospital, and that's how I got into nursing. Us drunks don't do anything easy. And I was in the hospital for 2 months, and I decided, I love these people, I want to be a nurse. And thank God my father said at that point in time, you know what, you know how many colleges I paid for? This one's on you, and thank God he did, because it stuck. And so I am an RN, and it was near and dear to my heart, because they took care of me and got me through that. So I'm working as a nurse, and I decide that I want to go work chemical dependency. I went from pediatric ICU to chemical dependency, and don't ask me how that happens. So I start working and running a treatment center. At this point in time, my parents, I failed to mention, during one of my nights drinking, I came home to stay in their house while they were down in Florida buying a condo, and I burnt the house down. Now, okay, when Ken said financial amends, how do you repay that? It's a lot of checks. But you know what it is the thing I want to say about financial amends, my sponsor always said, you don't say never. The thing that you need to do is be consistent. I've never been consistent in my life. You write a check, but you look at what you can possibly do, and you continue to do that week after week. And I was always shocked because every Wednesday I met with my mom, and I would write her a check, and we came up with an X amount of money, and she cashed it. And I was just blown away because I thought she'd put a little stash over here for her daughter for someday for what she needed. But I started writing those checks. But what I found is, you know what happened between her and I? I became credible. What happened is I started to have integrity. The same thing happened with work. I started showing up. And then I got a little bit better job. And every time I thought my boss wanted to talk to me, I thought, oh no, I'm going to get fired. And I get a promotion, I'm thinking, and then I think, oh, I can't do this. You know, I wanted to be an instant executive, and the minute I got the position, I was like, I'm sure I can't do this. But what you guys taught me is if I show up and I do the deal, good things happen in life. But also, hard things happen in life. So I'm trying, and how do I do that and not drink? And how do I do that and walk through that and be able to walk through that and cope? And so what you taught me is, how do I be a mother? How do I be a daughter? How can I be an example to my daughter? So I'm working at the chemical dependency unit. I have a daughter. She's approximately 8 years old. I had been married. It was a very abusive marriage. And I just realized I need to back up a little bit. It was a very abusive marriage, but I was no peach to live with myself, okay? And so if he was out, he just drank a little bit more than I did. And when he didn't come home, I threw a fit and the fight was on. And what happened finally when I decided to leave this marriage is I realized what I was doing to our daughter and the fights and the things that she had to experience. And so when I decided to leave, he beat me and he chased me, and I always ran to Dad, and he ran my father off the road, and he had a massive coronary, and he passed away. How do you sit and look at your family knowing what just happened? So what I do is I leave. I move out of state. Then I don't have to face you. And what I do more is I drink. Because the spirit that I need, I don't have. So I fill myself with spirit. So I drink to numb myself. And the more I drink and the more I continue, the worse it gets. And everywhere I go, problems go. So my father has passed away. My mother's alone. Again, my brother and I don't have this relationship, but now this has happened to his father. And that's even put more strain on our relationship. And now I have this little girl that I'm raising on my own. And what I can tell you is her father never has been involved in her life since then. He comes around now and then. And what you taught me is to be able to get through this because I had so much anger toward this man. And I want to talk about forgiveness because I don't know how to do that. I wanted him to hurt like he hurt my family. I wanted him to feel the pain that he put us through. And I talked to a priest, and I came in these rooms and was working with my sponsor, and I said, actually, I want him to burn in hell. I want him to feel what we felt. And you guys told me that you may not have to forgive, forget this, but you've got to learn to forgive. Because if you don't, this could take you out. And this, I found, is what blocked me from everything. I was so bitter and I was so angry. I truly believe the sunlight of the Spirit could not get to me. And it was through the work, and this is where I became a believer in these rooms. It was through that work and that inventory that something happened inside of me. I didn't feel hatred towards him. I didn't want to see him hurt. What I felt is just like the book talks about, a sick man. And I was grateful that I didn't have to live that life anymore. And I always say, I don't break bread with him, I don't hang with him, but I don't hate him. How does that happen? That has never happened to me in my life. And I realized that I can't live in these rooms and be a victim. Victims don't stay sober. Bad things happen to us, but victims don't stay sober. And once that was removed, you had me. Because I had tried everything, and nothing could remove that pain and that anger. Now we fast forward, and I want to talk a little bit about what happened with that man. So he continues on drinking. His brothers and his father are decent people. His father is dying, a double amputee, sitting in his house with no one to take care of him. I still touch base with him. I still take my daughter over there. How do you do that? Because you taught me that's what we do. Just because he is a sick person doesn't mean my daughter shouldn't still see her grandfather. So we would go over and we would take care of him. And we'd take Thanksgiving to him. And I even offered to have him come live in my house. And people are like, are you crazy? And I'm like, I think that's the thing we're supposed to do. His brother then passed away, and he had 2 girls, and they would hang out with my daughter. That was her cousins. And she said, Mom, what do we do? I want to see them. I want to go, but what if he's there? Bill. She doesn't even call him Dad. I said, and what if he is? If that's too uncomfortable for you, Chelsea, you don't have to go. But I think it's the right thing for me to do. Because I love those girls, and it's not their fault. So I went to the funeral. And the first person I see when I walk in the door, my ex. Chelsea did go with me. And she held on to me, and we walked in, and he acted like every other good drunk would act, like nothing ever happened. Hey, there's my 2 favorite girls. Come here and take a picture with me. And I'm thinking, oh, God, okay. We go up, and we attend the service. And he actually is doing the eulogy, and he's drunk. Halfway through it, he can't finish it. And he looks over at me and says, Joe, why don't you finish? How does that happen? If God wouldn't have softened my heart and the forgiveness wouldn't have happened, I would have never gone. I would never have been able to be an example to my daughter that we show up anyway. And we do what's right, even if it's uncomfortable. So I got up, and out of nowhere, I finished the eulogy. Because you know what was important? I looked at those 2 little girls. They just lost their father. It has nothing to do with what happened with my ex. But what we were able to do is to show up anyway, show respect to them, show the kids that this is what we do the next right thing. And when I left there, Chelsea said to me, Mommy, you're my rock. Now, she didn't always say those things to me, trust me. My daughter also, I've learned how to say no to her. Because I will tell you that there was a time after my divorce that I overcompensated. I wanted to give her everything. I felt guilty. I just got sober, I wanted to give her everything. And what I found is that's not the right way to love my daughter and to teach her how to live life, because that's not how life is. And so as she got to be a teenager, she began to act like her mother. And she would come in the neighborhood, and I'm like, she's drinking. She's like, how would you know that? I hadn't even gotten the driveway yet. I swear it was like, ding, 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 ding. I knew immediately. I'm a bloodhound. And she's like, well, we just had a few. Of course you just had a few. You're just like, we know that line. But what I found is she continued to drink, and I even took her to an AA meeting, and my dear friend reminded me. He said, Chelsea, did you want to come here tonight? She was like, no. And he said, Jill, it's subtraction, not promotion. It's like, what are we doing here? I said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I've drug her in these rooms, hoping I could sprinkle some AA fairy dust on her and she would start behaving. The truth is, she's not going to. She's a teenager, and if she is one of us, all I can do is be an example, and she knows where to come if she needs us. But I don't have to pay for a car and insurance, put wheels under her while she's drinking and driving where she can hurt somebody else. So I sold the car, and the darn thing sold the next day. I was like, oh, I wasn't planning that quick. I was like, now I got to take her to school every day. And I said, I'm going to quit paying for school. You get a student loan. And if you decide to get good grades, I'll pay it back. You decide to party, it's on you. I hate you. And I was like, but you guys and Al-Anon taught me to say, I love you. I don't like you, but I love you. Don't like your behavior. And so she moved out, went up to school, did it on her own. She just paid off her student loan, and then I paid the rest of school. But she got her head together. And she's not one of us, but it smelled like it. And what I realized, and you guys taught me, is I'm too close to this to make this. It's not my place to make a decision for her. And I'm way too close to this. And thank God there is an Al-Anon program, and there are other programs that can help me with things like this. I also had a brother that wasn't really a brother, right? I mean, we had so much age between us, and I was such a pain in the neck. He didn't want to associate with me. He literally used to hold me under in the pool because he's like, go away. And I would bug him, and I would read his girlfriend's letters, and I would give them to the other girlfriends, and all that stuff. I always have my nose in the middle of everything. It was like, just get her out of here, Mom. Get her out of here. And my girlfriends and I would get under his bed and listen to him and his friends. And it was just annoying. I mean, I would do the same thing, but he used to hold me under at the pool. So it didn't have a lot of use for me. And then what he saw is his mom cry all the time. They would get phone calls in the middle of the night. I was always out drinking and wrecking cars, and I was heartache. And I was always breaking his parents' heart. I wouldn't like me either. He really had no use for me. So he gets all through college, he gets married, has kids. I'm jealous and envious of all his success, but I've done nothing for my own self. And so what happens is he has 3 children, and they're like these model children. Of course they are. And in my amends, he tells me, I ask, is there anything else? Matter of fact, there is. And he proceeded to tell me how he felt that I sucked the oxygen out of the room in our family. He said, I went to school, I studied, I didn't party, I did all the things I was supposed to do. He said, and Mom and Dad never had time for me because they were always coming to get you and put you back together or get you out of jail or fix your cars. He said, how do you think that makes me feel? He said, even my wedding, they had to leave the reception early. And they did, because I had gotten in trouble. Well, I'd never seen it that way before, I don't look at things that way. That's not my perception. That's not the way I look at life. I look at what I get, what I don't get. I never look at how my actions impact you. I can go through resentment inventory and get to what I've done, but what about the conduct inventory? I have no problem telling you I'm mad, but do I ever sit down and say, what about what I've done to you that I'm not mad about? Whoa, that's a big list. So when he said that to me, I realized that how much joy I took out of his life because of the constant distraction and crap that I was causing in our family. And to watch his mom cry every night, and to watch my dad heartbroken, and then have his father killed. So it wasn't that he was like, hey, Joel, let's meet every day, let's hang out. And when I asked what I could do, he said, stay sober. Fast forward. My mom gets diagnosed with cancer. And I'm like, not mom. Now what? Get me back up here. I'll tend to walk around too. You may have to pull me back. She gets diagnosed with cancer, and I'm in disbelief, and they tell me that she has 3 months to live. Perfectly healthy person. Didn't drink, didn't smoke. If she had 2 drinks, she put her shoes on the wrong feet. The woman didn't, she did nothing. I was like, oh my God. And they said she had 3 months to live. She ended up living 2.5 years. This woman had amazing faith. But here's what this alcoholic did. I got really angry. And guess who I got angry with? God. And guess what my only solution is? God. So what's that look like? That's scary. That's scary. And my sponsor took me through some inventory, and she had just lost her dad. And what we realized in that inventory is that I was so full of fear. And here I was consumed with losing my mom and what I wasn't going to have and what it was going to look like in the dying process. I had taken no consideration for the woman that was laying in bed in pain, dying. It was all about me. And during that work, something changed again. Thank God for this process, because something changed again in my heart. I have never been an unconditional person. I can tell you I'd love to think I am. I can tell you you need to be. But I don't know how to do that, guys. I just don't know. And what happened in my heart is I started showing up. I was the girl that took her calls at 3 o'clock in the morning. So for 2.5 years, I became her caregiver. At the same time, my stepfather got a glioblastoma, a brain tumor. So I had 2 of them, and they died 2 weeks apart. And I mean, sometimes when it rains, it pours. And that's kind of how it's been recently. But it's like, I can do life when it's good. How do I do life when it's not? The difference between the death of my father, still drinking, no amends, and my mother dying, who I've made amends to, and I wrote checks to. I had still been writing checks to, making the financial amends and making it right. The difference between those two are night and day. As hard as that was, what I found is a joy of showing up. Her repeating herself didn't bother me anymore. Her calling me in the middle of the night didn't irritate me anymore. How does that happen? Because I used to go up there grumbling, going, what the hell? I got to get up in the morning. And my brother's wife was a nurse too. And it really irritated me because I thought she should be going. And what I realized is everybody grieves differently. And my brother couldn't handle going in those rooms. But what he could handle is after the fact. And he handled all the affairs. You know, God has a plan for each one of us. I know he has a plan for me, but sometimes I fight it. And where I needed to be is the caregiver. And you know the conversation I got to have with my mom? We got to talk about death. We got to talk about how scared she was. Not how scared I was, how scared she was. What the dying process looked like. She said, I can't believe I'm able to have this conversation with you. Everybody that walked in that room wanted to say, hey, how are you? And be positive. How about let's talk about what this poor woman's scared about? She's facing death. The doctors, the nurses, my own family, no one asked her. But because of this program, I was able to walk through that and talk to her about what it's going to look like. What we proceeded to do is she made her own dress. She told me the music she wanted, what pictures she wanted and what pictures she didn't. She wanted to make sure I did her wig for her, put on her fake, what she called her winkers, and I did. But I got to respect her, where she was. I mean, 2.5 years with a prognosis of 3 months. The doctor said, I don't know what she's doing. And they'd give her last rites, and she'd be like, oh, when's my next treatment? Everybody like, what is she doing? I mean, the woman had faith like you wouldn't believe. But I think inside she really needed to know that her daughter was going to be okay. And what happened, one of the last things she said to me is, you have faith. God's in your life, and I know you're going to be okay. And she was right. And then she said, I'm going to take your inheritance and I'm giving it to AA. I said, whoa, wait a minute. There's only so much you can give, and you're not an alcoholic, so you can't do that. So you can give this amount. But I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So see, not that healthy. So she passed and Bob passed. And I didn't care for my stepfather when I first met him, because he's the one that said, how old are you? Can't you do this on your own? And I was like, because usually I asked Mom, and she did for me. But he taught me a lesson. He was a very successful man. And he said, Joe, if you want to get here, I'll co-sign, but you have 12 months to clean up your credit. And I was like, yeah, right. Okay, get this, sign this paper. I'm like, I could care less. I didn't care. I wasn't going to do it. Well, guess what? Every month he checked on me. I was like so annoyed. Well, that prompted some inventory. And what ended up happening is at the end of that time, I was able to redo that paperwork and get him off my loan. And he said, now the other thing we're going to do is we're going to cut up those credit cards. So I was like, because I make weekly to, or more frequently, visits to the mall, because I find that I distract myself very easily by those things. And what he said is, you got to learn is, it's like anything else in life. If you can't pay for it, if you don't have the money, you don't buy it. What the hell? It's like, who does that? And I'm like, who does that? I'm like, but I want to buy a boat. And he's like, you can't afford to get your house. It's like, what in the world? So I agreed to do that. I don't know why I did that. And I'm so thankful. And then we cut up all my credit cards. You know what? I all of a sudden started finding clothes I didn't even know I had, that still had price tags on them, all kinds of stuff. And I started enjoying the things that I had rather than seeking the things that I wanted. And that has been consistent throughout my life. I am the girl of more, And what I find is that, when I was my happiest, I hate almost saying this because, okay, everything's going to happen to me now. But really, when I was most happy is when I was newly sober in my little tiny house, digging in the dirt, planting my flower garden. I just was content. I want a contented soul. But I'll distract myself with all kinds of stuff. Don't get me wrong. Being successful and showing up at work and doing a good job and leading a fulfilled life is not wrong. But when that becomes my focus and not the things that you were talking about, then there's a problem. I was at the top rung at my company, and I couldn't lay my head on my pillow at night. I worked hard to get there. They were a good company. I enjoyed it. And things started changing within the company and the ownership. And guys, I can't have a heart full of God and be able to show up and sell stuff I don't believe in. I just can't do it anymore. There would have been a time I'd been like, hey, that paycheck, I'll make it happen. I could not do it. And I became more irritable and discontent. And nor was I doing them a favor, because if I'm not doing my job, then that's stealing. And I couldn't do it. So I came to this point, I just could not go on. So my sponsor had me write inventory. We prayed about it, and it was about 6 to 9 months before I actually resigned. And I had been there 11 years and part of their executive team. And it was, I've taken almost a year off. And people say, are you crazy? I'm like, yeah. But I haven't starved. The other thing I know, and I just started my own company. But here's what's happened. I walked away from something, and what I realized is I was tied to the strappings of that company. It was a great paycheck. But, I can't do this work and ask God to change me, and then he changes me and say, whoa, not that part, But so I had to be able to, my values and those moral codes that I had as a kid, that I wanted back, that were stripped when I was drinking and out there behaving the way I was, those things have rebuilt inside of me. And I had to pay attention to it. I don't want to ignore what has saved my soul. So I resigned. And I was going to take some time off. I'm going to start my own company. Don't know if it's going to be successful. If not, I'll go get a job. First time in my life I have had no fear. And I keep telling my friends, I'm like, I don't know if I've just lost my mind or if I'm really just okay, but I've had no fear about it. The first couple months I took and I went and spent with my brother and my niece. She's now 2 years clean and sober. Horrible heroin addiction. Horrible. And my brother said to me, "Is she your daughter?" I was like, "Shut up. Be quiet, Joe. Be quiet." It's like, wow, okay. He said, "I didn't raise her this way." And what I realized is he has no idea. He has no idea about addiction. Thankfully, Al-Anon was able to work with my brother and sister-in-law. It's not for me to send that message to him, but they were able to work with him. I was able to help him with Allie, and this is where I keep saying things start coming back together. For 17 years, I met with my brother and had lunch with him, just trying to rebuild the relationship. And I would get so angry because I was like, oh, he meets me for lunch, he's nice, but it's still just nothing. You know, it's just the same. It's just like, I mean, he's kind to me, but I don't feel that brotherly, sisterly love. My sponsor always said, continue to do it. Continue to do it. I get a call out of the blue. Allie's near death. Can you come over? I can't save her. But I showed up day after day and held this girl and tried to talk to them, and I just let them talk. I didn't have to have any special skills. I had to have love. And you know, today he looks at me and says, I had no idea what this was like. I am so proud of you. He just sent me to Florida when I quit work to go down and spend time with Allie. She went through a tough period. And he said, I don't know what I'd do without you in my life. You know, we hang out all the time today. It's better than any shopping trip. It's just amazing to me what it's done to my soul. 17 years, never got a budge out of him. But I was consistent. Because you showed me to continue to show up and be an example. Because we never know when God's handiwork is going to show up. And it took that long. I drank that long, guys. He grew up with me. That's what I did for years. You know, and I'd always get mad. It's like, I've been doing this so many years. Why hasn't he changed? It's like, well, how long did you drink? But I want to be sober a year, and I want you to forgive me. Isn't that the way it always works? My timeline's a lot shorter, but so after my time off has allowed me to be with my brother, to hang out with him. He's retired now. We have fun together. Go down to Florida and be with his daughter. Spend more time with my friends and the girls in the program. And then the other thing that I found is it gave me time to spend with me. I am a girl that's on the go 24/7. I don't know that I've ever spent this much time with myself. Can't say I like it all the time either. But what I found is I'm starting to be okay with just where I'm at. 20 years, I'm just starting to be okay where I'm at. I don't know that I've ever slowed down long enough to really sit in it. I don't feel scared. I don't feel upset or worried about the future. I really believe today that I trust He's got my back. But I have to stay in it and be reminded, because my ego rebuilds itself and pretty soon I'm chasing something else. And so I have the blessings of being able to work with other girls and constantly be reminded, like I talked about the 12-step, of constantly being reminded of where I'm, where I was and who I was. Because I forget how far I've come. I forget all the blessings that have happened in my life. All I'm looking at is right now, today. So I've lost the financial, the paycheck that could be my master at one point in time. I had got a divorce after 18 months. That didn't last long. Figured that didn't work. And then I was in an accident and thrown from a horse and had to have my entire mouth bone graft and 17 surgeries. So much for vanity. You have to put your teeth in a cup, but So I will soon have my last surgery next week. Everything that I actually depended on, the emotional security of a man, the financial security of my job, the vanity of looks, gone in 2 years. Well, there darn well better be something bigger than me, guys. Was I scared? No. Was it depressing? Yes. Was it sad? Yes. Did I stay in that place? No, because I have people that love me that don't allow me to speak the truth to me. To speak the truth. I was reading this poem and I was talking to Susan and it was about taking the mask off. And if you don't call this taking the mask off, I don't know what to tell you. So 17 surgeries in 2 years. And I can't do the pain medicine, but they did see me post-op. Well, my sponsors, my sponsees and my friends all got the joy of bringing their sponsor home, saying all kinds of stuff after surgery. But, you know, they got to see me in a state that they weren't used to seeing me in. And it was a humbling time for me this past year and a half. But you know what? You guys love me just the same. And I realize you can dress me up, but half the time you can't take me out. But really what matters, and I've always said this, but I don't know how much I believed it, it's this inside that matters. And it's got to match the outside. And I was so consumed with always this being what was so important. And as I find that my soul becomes more content, I find that I'm more at home. We recently just lost a girl at home that was murdered. And I realized how quick our lives can be taken from us. And I can tell you I don't take things for granted. Yes, I do. I do. It often takes really difficult things to happen in my life to stop me in my tracks. I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow, but all I know is what I do today. I hope that, you know, people remember what you do, not what you say. And that's what you taught me. Anybody can write a check, anybody can tell you something, but when you show up and you hold hands with somebody and you walk through the uglies and you love them anyway, those are the things people remember. And you guys, that's not what I knew how to do. So today I can show up for my daughter. She says, Mom, how do you figure this stuff out? I don't know, it was just a very bright woman. No, you taught me that. I don't know how to do this stuff. I have no idea. But you know, everything she has problems with, it all goes back to the same thing. Where's your faith? What are you trying to manage? And she just thinks that's just unbelievable. It's like, gosh, so smart. Yeah, we finally got it going. But it's just funny. And then also there's times where her and I just, we're so much alike, we butt heads. And and that's where I have to realize it's not my place. Tell her how she should act. She's grown. I just got to love her where she's at. And sometimes that's harder than heck. But you guys help me with that. Today I'm working in my own company, and the doctors I used to work for, I guess I actually was a decent employee because they called me up and said, hey, can we write a contract and you come work for us? So I'm doing my own consulting and working for the doctors. That never happened in the past. Don't know where that's going to go. Don't know if that's going to be a lifelong, the rest of my career, but it's nice to be respected. It's nice to be wanted by people. And in regard to the program, all I know is that I can't imagine living without it. It doesn't always, it's not always something that I'm like, I love this, I love doing this every day, but I tell you what, when I get in a room of like-minded people that do the work, that passion that for this program just revitalizes me. And you know, I don't want to lose that, so I have to stay in the middle. You know, a girl told me once, she said, you know, it's like a flower garden, Jill. You know, you got to go in, you got to cultivate the soil, you got to weed that if you want to have flowers. So I got to take care of that flower garden, right? So I've got to continually go through, do inventory, get rid of the stuff that blocks me and makes me try to be somebody that I'm not. And every time I'm right size, my soul is content. Coming here and sharing with you all my uglies and trying to be transparent on where I am in life and where I'm not, makes my soul content. I'm just so thankful that I'm in a program that allows me to do that and to continue to grow, because if I wasn't continually seeking, that means I'd be done, and I can't imagine what my life would be without that. So thank you for having me. Let me share something with you that I love, that I try to close with. It says that people are often unreasonable, irrational, self-centered, but forgive them anyway. If you're kind, people may accuse you of being selfish, having ulterior motives, but be kind anyway. If you're successful, you may win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies, but succeed anyway. If you're honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years creating and others could destroy overnight, but create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best you have. It will never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the final analysis, it's between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Something I need to remember. Thank you all.